This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC. I have the pleasure of bringing in from Wichita, Kansas, or right outside of Wichita, the legend in the religious side and in the fitness side. We're going to merge both and we're going to introduce to you Ben Ludwig. Welcome to the show.
So glad to be here. Thank you for having me, Pete.
Awesome. So, as I look back at your background and you can explain it to us, you've gone from, fitness enthusiast, working with a lot of brands that were growing over time, building your career up, and then also you're a pastor. So tell us how that kind of converged. Was that always the plan? Were you doing fitness to kind of fund your religious, career development? Tell us how that worked, and tell us how these things kind of, are very similar, but we don't really talk about it.
Yeah. So Pete, that was not the plan at all. As a matter of fact, if you ask most people that are in ministry, that was never their original plan. Mm-hmm. And for me, fitness was always my 100% go-to. I started as a personal trainer back in the day and worked my way up just through my passion for helping people. And that's what I thought my career was going to be forever. Well, I always volunteered with the churches that I was a part of. You've seen my resume. We moved around a lot, opening gyms all over Texas, that sort of thing. And when we got to the Midwest, it was no different. I got to a larger church and realized that the programming of connecting people to the church wasn't quite what it needed to be. So I met with the location pastor and said, hey, this process needs some work. I'm not here to complain. I'm here to help. Let's work on this. Let's make it better. So what we did was I basically volunteered my way into being on staff because we ended up getting the programming going to where we had a lot better connectivity. In the course of about a year, the church, the location was at about 15 groups, and we got it up to about 50 in about a year. Wow. So with that in mind, it was just a process. It just needed a process in place. How do people connect? When they connect, what does the leader do to be able to connect with that person? And so through that, I actually was able to flex and do both, because around that time was the time that I ended up getting involved with F45 training as well. So it's allowed me to be able to do both.
So let me ask you a question. When you go into, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's a religious organization, and you kind of bring these, business strategies and these, takeaways and tools, do some people say like, hey, look, like we're not in the business world, but you are actually, because you need leads, you need memberships, right? We need to fill the place up because there's a level of energy, in a synagogue or a church or, any religious out. If there's 12 people in there, it's not really giving me the vibe that we're, spiritually praying up. And, are we getting the kind of attention that we need with 12 people or like 1,200? So when you were going through that, how did you kind of take your business principles and kind of infuse them into how people thought when they kind of thought like, we're not at work, Ben? So tell us how, maybe some case studies on that, or what kind of techniques you used.
I love it. I'm going to give you two parallels here, Pete. So the first parallel I'm going to give you is the fitness, which, well, of course, all of our viewers are going to be, comfortable with. Right. So you have trainers that are great with program design. They're really good with understanding how to be able to get results, but they are not good, or they hate sales.
Right.
So we've got to teach them how to be able to provide solutions to problems, right? We've got to teach them how to speak to people. We've got to teach them how to be able to move people through a process and then keep them coming back. Well, on the church side of things, the big verse that we use all the time in churches is Matthew, where it's the Great Commission, where our goal is to make disciples of all nations. So when I'm coming to a leader that maybe isn't as comfortable inviting people to their group or growing the church or even sharing their faith, well, if we take that Great Commission Bible verse and say, okay, what are we doing, or how do you share your faith? Most people aren't comfortable sharing their faith, just like trainers aren't comfortable selling. So for someone in a faith-based setting, the goal is to be able to help give them structures and ways to be able to share their faith, or ways to be able to invite people to a group. Because again, we know that on a trainer side, the goal is to get them results. And once they get into our program, they're going to get results. Well, the program's no different when you look at a church. Is, again, if I pre-frame and help that leader understand that they're helping people live a better life, or they're helping people become more spiritually close to God, well, then our goals are the same. So let's help people get involved.
Right. So when you think about, and you might like this word or you might not, but I go to Soul Cycle, okay, and I wear Soul Cycle gear. Probably like 70% of my clothing that I wear is like Soul Cycle, or sometimes I'll go to Dick's Sporting Goods. I'll just buy all the Nike stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll tell people I'm self-sponsored by Nike, and I'll keep this receipts. And then when I do get sponsored, I'm going to back bill them, to get reimbursed for it. But SoulCycle is a cult to me. Okay. And it ticks off a lot of boxes. It's like, I used to go to nightclubs, right? It checks off that box, the energy and the music that I liked. It checks off the box of like going to church or going to a synagogue. I'm Jewish, so go to synagogue. So it checked off that box for me. It also checked off like a socialization, like, okay, I spend an hour a day talking to people, and, the guy up there is kind of like he's like my pastor, right? Or he's like my rabbi, and he's Mantis, and he's 20 years younger than me. But I'm actually listening to him as if he's going to give me some wisdom. And a lot of times he does. So it's checking off all these boxes, and then I get my endorphins going in. And by the end of the second to last song, all these ideas are coming out. I need like a pad to be like, oh, I came up with this idea, or like this acronym, like Halo or whatever. So how do you feel about the word cult? One, and two, do you want to set up a cult? Are there good cults, like that could actually like kind of encompass all the positives of what you're trying to do? So what do you think about that? Because it's like a Netflix documentary, but no one has like this good cult documentary.
Yeah, for sure. So I think because of the natural derogatory, term of cult, I think people tend to put that into a bucket, just because of their preconceived notions. What I would say is, if you look at it more as a following, if you look at it more as a way of life, I mean, lifestyle brands are one of the biggest things in the fitness industry right now, right? People are trying to be able to create, to your point with SoulCycle, the clothing, how you look, the fact that you're affluent, like you want to be a part of that cult or that following. So I really think that as long as you frame it the right way for the right people, it's all about your ideal client. You've got to ensure that whatever language you're speaking is the language of the person that you're trying to draw. And that's where I think that it's not necessarily a derogatory term, because, hey, everybody wants to be part of something. I mean, think about it, Pete. Think about how many of these big brands nowadays are connecting to nonprofits or are finding ways to give back to their communities. We teach within F45 that if you're a franchise owner, you need to be finding ways to get involved in your community and to give back, because that's what people want to be a part of. They want to know that you're not just here to make a profit. They want to know that you're here to make a difference.
Right. When you think about F45, and let's kind of go into that, it started in Australia. That kind of workout was kind of proliferated by Orange Theory, and they did a great job about it. F45 is using more technology, that's allowing people to interact and maybe not have as many coaches. So there's scalability to it. And it's kind of turning into its own, almost like neighborhood, following. We'll use that term for the rest of the podcast. How's that? Are we good with that?
Deal.
I'm going to take the other word. We're going to get rid of it. Just like we got rid of the word wellness. Like no one even uses it anymore. Just talk about the halo effect. So when you think about F45, are there people that have F45 tattoos like Gold's Gym?
There is.
So we're going in that direction. Like that to me is like a tell, right? If you have somebody said to me the other day, oh, all that company has is a brand. Like it's like a commodity. I'm like, how hard it is to like have like a symbol, and people pay a premium for a symbol or for like a 5-letter word that means something. Yeah, that's all they have is a brand. Why don't you go try and invest and tell me how your results are in 10 years if you don't believe brands are important?
Yeah, absolutely. Pete, I mean, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because, we've only been in the US for around 5 years, and we already have US owners that have F45 tattoos. And I just saw at the end of this last year, one of our Australian owners actually wrote a song about the 45-day challenge, as we used to call it, awesome. Posted it on social media pages. And there's this, to go back to the old word, cult-like following within F45 because of the brand's evolution, because we're continuing to find ways not just to evolve the workouts, but also to evolve even our education on how we coach owners on how to run their business. Yeah. So I think we've done a good job of that.
So when you think about where you entered into F45, and we were actually working with a group at one point when they were doing one of the financings for the company. And they had a very small team in the US, and they were talking about very lofty expectations of what they were going to do in the US, which they've executed on probably with some of your help. But when you think about, training, and mostly it's entrepreneurs that buy franchises, right? So they're already wired to be like, look, I'll take a brand, thanks. Let me do my thing. Right.
Yeah.
And like, you can give me some guardrails, like in a bowling alley, but
Yep.
I might take them down when you leave, So how did you kind of come into this and say, all right, here's like the guiding principles and like trust the process? And what are some of the things that you did that kind of move the culture, move this into like a community and a following without kind of pissing people off and saying like, hey, I bought this franchise. Like, okay, I get it. You're going to give me certain things, but I don't want you in my grill all the time. Even though, like, look, if I'm in your grill, you're probably gonna make more money. You're probably gonna have more members. You're probably gonna enjoy your life more.
Right. Yep. I love it. So when I came into F45, Pete, one of the things that we have all of our employees go through is new franchisee induction. So I went through induction and I noticed two glaring things. The first thing that I noticed was the workout was everything F45. That's why people love it. That's why people talk about it all the time. That's why people get great results, because we put so much time and effort into the workout that it was taking over the globe, literally.
Right.
The other thing that was glaring to me was there wasn't business practices in place that were scalable. The sales process when I got here for a new membership was, look, just get them in the door. They're going to love the workout. They're going to sign up. I went, oh, wait a minute. That's not usually the case. So
right.
we gotta figure out how to keep people, right? So what we did was I was part of I still am. I'm a senior member now, but I'm part of the performance team. So every franchise has business management or business consultants that they have as part of their department. So that's ours. Ours is called performance. So for us as a performance team, that's what we did. We started writing manuals as to what the sales process should be systemized as, how the retention process should be followed up, how we get members to show up. If they're not coming, what should you say on the phone? All of those things we structured for these businesses. So what that's done is that's allowed us to say, here's your playbooks. Now go do it. Just make sure and hold accountability to this, because if you can hold accountability to this, you will scale to whatever growth opportunities you have. Let us as a performance team help you set your personal goals.
So just on the technology side, I don't know this, but is there a software, system that everyone uses, or can choose their own?
Yes. Yeah. We've got it all systemized there as well. So we've got a standard system.
Is it outsourced or is it internal?
Internal.
Oh, it is. Interesting. Okay. So you're not working with ABC or GlowFox or Daxco or any of those groups on?
Nope. Again, for our workout programming and all of that, as far as getting that on the televisions, that's all internal.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. For our billing and all that, we use MindBody.
Okay. Gotcha.
In the US. Yeah.
Right. And then from a standpoint of F45s, comping their performance against other groups, as a performance coach, are you getting that data and saying like, hey, this is where you rank? This is, do you use kind of like peer-to-peer comparisons or kind of peer pressure, or, hey, I never want to be in the bottom 25%, so I give myself a little kick and be like, hey, let's get rolling here?
For sure. Well, we're a public company now, Pete. So obviously we have to be very careful about what data we share. And even on network calls, our performance team, we monthly hold a call where we discuss what's next. What should you be looking at? What should you be thinking about? What should your marketing look like? So we on a monthly basis, we address the entire network. So we're careful about what data we share, but absolutely. I mean, think about it. Like you're a sports guy, man, everybody wants to be on top of the food chain, right? So if I'm in second or third place, I want to know what I need to do to make sure that I win next month, right? So without sharing other studios' data, we do use rankings relatively often.
Gotcha. So the F45 is kind of, a business model that can pretty much go, in much smaller population areas than, what larger health clubs do from a demographic standpoint. And obviously the rents in some of these, C or D markets, nothing wrong with the letters C and D, but smaller markets, don't have the same overhead. So, and your business model has very few employees, right? Because of the technology that you're using. So, when you look at bringing on a new franchisee, I said this to somebody the other day, you want to be a franchisor, you better learn to say the word no, like 100 times a day, right? Because you can't, somebody that has a territory that you want, so I can say not available. You don't have the financial statement because I'm not taking a risk on you. Something happened in your background check. People just didn't like you, didn't think you'd be a good fit. But F45, you kind of toggle between, hey, look, if I'm in a town of like 15,000 people, an F45 will work there. Like a 30,000 square foot, Gold's Gym's not going to work there because it's just not enough, population to make the math work. So how do you think about going into smaller towns where there really are communities and followings, and kind of saying, hey, look, let's not look at the population density. Let's look at the operator, what's their past has been. So talk about your like criteria or lens that maybe other people can't do because the business models like demands more unit economics.
You're so right, Pete. Our OpEx is so relatively low to the industry. And I think that my background coming from opening up these big commercial gyms where we needed, 5 to 10,000 members,
right,
really given me a different lens as to how easy it is to be able to connect to a niche. So that's really what we've done. I actually coach franchisees to look at those C&D markets. We use a lot of third-party help to be able to get data on these markets, because what we're trying to be able to do is ensure that we coach people as to what they should be marketing to. I mentioned ideal client earlier. Well, we coached that a lot using those third-party companies to help us create that for these owners. That way they know from day one who they're marketing to and who they want coming in their doors. That way they're not wasting time running through a bunch of trials that weren't their ideal client to begin with.
So when you talked about the programming and the importance of the programming. I've been working in the industry for like 20 plus years, I guess. No, more than that. 25 years now. Gold's Gym, when I first got involved there, they used to have like the body transformation challenge, right? Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's the reason why most people, get into exercise, because they want to look better. Now people want to feel better, in their internal organs. But most of the time it's like, hey, this shirt doesn't fit me anymore. I really like this shirt. I used to look good in it. People would talk to me. Now they don't. The buttons come off. So let's like get our act together and let's motivate again. So, and then the industry started focusing on price. Then the industry started focusing on like, I got all this stuff in here, right? And the message was lost. Yeah. And at the end of the day, people want to go into these studios and they just want to get results, right? And one of the things that bothered me about SoulCycle, and I am part of the following, so I didn't make a stink about it because I didn't want to get blacklisted, on my bike and people going to like me. They had an opportunity every time I walked in there to say, hey, Pete, what are you looking to achieve today? Or how can I get you into a place? Or what, is there an event that you're trying to get to? Like, it almost like a lot of these studios, they say like, yeah, I send out an email blast to all my members, That's like an excuse for not talking to people, right? Sure. Yeah. So how do you think about just focus on the results and what's the average F45, 300 members?
Yep. So that's that's really one of the ways that we're able to focus so heavily on results, Pete, is because again, we're not trying to connect with 3,000 people, right? We're at 10% of that. So if I'm working with that small group of people, then what I can do is from day one, I can make sure that that's what the conversation sounds like. I mentioned we recreated the sales process. Well, part of the sales process is discovery. We coach people not to talk about F45 until I understand your situation. That way I can present it as a solution to your problem. So once I do that, then the follow-up is so much easier because I've got all the notes that I need. I know what your goals are. We've got systems in place as to even what trial visit you're on and what you should be doing in that trial visit afterwards. So we can make sure that once you do sign up for a membership, we know what your goals are. And we've got 30, 60, 90-day plans on when we're going to follow up to you achieving those goals. So it's a blend of how do we use automation, but then how do we create a personal connection within that?
Got it. I would love if you had like an illustration of that. I don't know if you can see it. I got my blur on. I gotta get my blur off. I gotta get my blur off for a second here. This is like the video version that we're not releasing of the podcast. But I can see like it'd be like, hey, here's all the things that you're trying to do, and everything leads into like, oh, your solution? Oh, it's F45.
Yeah, there you go.
Like every decision tree leads down to this. But when you say that, it really does, right? You want to lose weight, you want to, have socialization, you want to, be stronger, you want to be more flexible. Like it really is the solution. But leading with like when people come in and say, I'm doing this business plan and I'm creating this new studio, I'm creating this new product. Everything's got to come from a frustration that you're solving, right? And people have frustrations. So they don't go to F45 because, they've already got a home gym. Like if they haven't got a home gym, it's not working for them, right? So that's why they're coming. So they got a frustration with motivation, or they want to meet people. So when you think about where F45 could go and how you could scale it, obviously you got the systems in place, you got a culture, you got guys like you running around, the country and making sure like that the messaging is the way it should be. is there a size of a company where you say like, hey, and it's a public company, so maybe we don't talk about it, but sometimes people lose that unique DNA when you kind of grow. But there's plenty of case studies where there's thousands of Dunkin' Donuts, and the product consistency is there, and they control it. In the health club industry, once you get to like 1,000 locations, it's not managed the same way because it's decentralized. So maybe talk about, without kind of triggering any public company stuff, how you guys think about growth, and it's like, I used to work on Wall Street. I guess I still do. People think growth is like the best thing you can do. And then they realize that I outkicked my coverage in football, right? It's like, you want this company to put up 300 franchises every quarter. You actually don't. Okay. Let them grow, let them create value, and then don't overprice the stock in targets that then translate into irrational decisions where you might say yes, because like some guy in Wall Street on the 40th floor who's like 32 years old said, oh, F45 should be able to put up this many franchises this quarter. I'm like, dude, you have no idea what you're talking about. So anyway, we can cut this out if we need to. Oh, we'll just replay it on YouTube. But like, how do you think about, without giving up, like what goes on internally, how much comfort do you feel in like how fast a company could grow where you can kind of hold on to it?
Yeah. So here's what I would say, Pete. We're in a position now to where we have so much of the spotlight when it comes to the fitness industry that we have a lot of private equity groups that are coming in and wanting to open up hundreds of these things. We have a lot of successful owners that have a plan to open 50 more. So scaling is one of the main topics for us as a performance team right now. That's what we're talking about a lot. And what I would say is, in my opinion, if there was an easy button or just an unlock for how to be able to create culture, man, we'd all be billionaires, right? Right. But right now, how do we scale that process to make sure that you have those right people? Well, we coach. I mean, even in induction. So I told you my experience of going to induction a few years back. I actually teach induction now, and part of what I teach is culture. Part of what I teach is how to interview properly. How do you look for a person's values as opposed to just their resume and their experience? Because to your point, Pete, you've got to find people that truly care about making a difference in other people's lives. And when you find those people, then our system makes total sense, because that person that wants to help people isn't making phone calls because they just want to. They're making phone calls because they want to be able to help somebody. Right. So I think the only balance we have to find, which I think can be hard, is we talked about the brand awareness that we have. People with tattoos, people writing songs about our challenge.
That's awesome.
Well, we've got to kind of pull the reins back on that with some of our studio level staff and coach them on, hey, I'm glad you're excited about the product, but don't project your excitement onto the client. They don't care how cool your workout is. They want to lose 20 pounds. They want to feel better about themselves. They want to play with their kids at the park without their knees hurting. Yeah. So we have to remind people of that and coach them on how to do that.
So last question here. Since you are, a pastor and you've got a community and your religious followings, and, teaching people to trust their instincts and, do the right thing all the time, and, judgments and community and family and the importance and prioritizing those things. We got an obesity issue in this country, and there's some like fast casual restaurants that are making the booths bigger to accommodate people. Like, that is unacceptable to me. There's serving sizes that confuse people, right? Yep. The peanut butter M&Ms say sharing size. I don't share that with anyone. Okay. I just eat more M&Ms, right? I'm in the airport by myself. Who am I going to share this with? And they know that, right? So is there a way for the religious organizations to basically say, hey, look, I'm your spiritual, I'm your mind, but like, I'm also part of your body. So we're going to start bringing this community into an F45. We're going to have we're going to do a pastor. We're going to do a sermon with Ben, and then we're going to go to F45, and then we're going to go to lunch. Like, is that happening, or when is it going to happen?
We're evolving towards that, Pete. I think that it's a all around wellness, to use the old word.
Yeah, exactly.
That people are
circa 2017.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. But look, I mean, spiritual well-being is just as important as physical well-being to a lot of people nowadays. So
Right.
what I'm seeing, and even what we're doing, so for example, we're putting out a summer calendar for our network of churches that I work with. And what we're doing is we're encouraging families to get together in physical settings. So we're going to have days at the park. We're going to have days at a splash park to where we're getting people outdoors active, doing things like that. And what I would say is, in order for us to be able to really help people in both sides, and this is where I say the parallels tend to happen a lot, is those that are spiritually healthy know that they should take care of themselves physically. Because if God calls me to go to another country and be a missionary, how am I going to do that if I can't even walk up a flight of stairs? And then the opposite.
That's a great way to express it to someone, that you can't do the things with your mind if you can't, your body can't take you there.
Exactly.
That's great. I never really thought about it that way. So in closing here, you got a good quote. I'm sure you have thousands, but what's some of your favorite ones, or like something that kind of guided you, into this position here where you're kind of the Olympian hybrid, between fitness.
I think one of the mottos that I live by, Pete, and what I believe created success for me in my fitness career, and now even when it comes to spirituality or the churches that I work with, is the fact that you always have the opportunity to influence people. Every moment that you spend with someone is an opportunity to influence them. And that's going to be for the positive or for the negative. As human beings, we naturally either progress or regress. We don't really stay the same. Think about it from a simply scientific standpoint. How many people eat exactly the amount of calories that they burn every single day? They don't. So you're either progressing towards your goals or you're regressing. Right. So for me, that's where a lot of the coaching in my career came into play. Is I tried to never waste a moment that I spent with an employee. A moment that I spent with them was an opportunity to influence them for the better.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, I look forward to meeting you in person. We'll get a workout in, do a little prayer together. We'll go and get all these people and teach them how to run a business that's successful. And I think people really need to understand, take a time out, fix your business, understand all the different levers that Ben's talking about. A business doesn't, become miraculously better because of a marketing campaign. It's you got to get employees. You got to give them, responsibility. You got to put systems in place. You got to train them. You got to look them in the eye, and you got to coach them up. So, all right, man, thanks for coming on. Glad you reached out. We're fast friends. So if we can be helpful, let us know. And that's awesome. All right, bud.
Sounds great. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, man. Talk to you soon.